All right, welcome back to the Go Marketing Show, everyone. Today you'll see a new face on the stream here. I'm joined today by Liam McDermott, one of our fellow giant goaters, but he has a little bit of a different role than Ben, Doug, and I. He's more on the development side. So, Liam, thank you for coming on the show today.
Yeah, great to be here.
Perfect. So we can jump right in here. So that what kind of spurred this episode was Liam did a presentation last week about how he's using AI and what he's been learning about it and some other fun stuff. So why don't we start with Liam? Can you just tell us a bit about what you do with Giant Goat and kind of where AI fits into your job right now?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a web developer. I mostly work with Drupal, but some other technologies as well. Often modern web development is like you're working in a number of different languages and different frameworks and things. So that's kind of where AI helps me a lot is I can't remember everything. Like I can't remember every framework that I work with. Kind of sounds like a humble brag. It's not. Yeah, I can't remember the details about everything that I do. So AI kind of remembers that stuff for me. So that's, for me personally, that's where it's really helpful. Also learning. If you can, if you're even trying to figure something out and you think you've got an answer and you don't know if it's right, you can say to ChatGPT, for example, hey, this is this is the question that I've got, and this is my answer, and this is my reasoning. Well, does that actually work? Is that right? And it can usually tell you. And then actually, because we all know that AI sometimes gets it wrong quite often, it's actually kind of a good feeling because it'll tell you the right reasoning, but then sometimes it will come to the wrong answer. And then you're like, aha, I'm still smarter than you. So that's a good thing.
That's cool. I actually I have been learning a little bit with it too. Like I do web content updates for people sometimes, and sometimes they'll come to me and they'll say, "Oh, this doesn't look right or this isn't working how we wanted it to." And I don't really know anything about code or like HTML or I don't have any background in that. But if someone brings a problem to me and they can describe what they want to do, I can put that into ChatGPT and say, can you write the code for this? Because I don't know how to do it, but maybe you do. And it's actually worked out a couple times where I've gone in with no understanding and it gives me a solution. So
Yeah, that's great. So even what you've just been using it like HTML and CSS, like,
yeah,
yeah, pretty simple stuff. But yeah, if you don't have to come to me for that, that's great, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So this presentation you gave last week, which is where I directly stole the title of this episode. Hope that's okay. But
I,
I
I
was
think it was Megan that came up with the title for that anyway. So
Um, I was just hoping that you could tell us a little bit about some of the conclusions that you were presenting about, both the positive and the negative conclusions you came to on using AI for what you do.
yeah, so the presentation, it was about there's this Joomla content management system, and then there's Drupal. And I needed an extension that was available for Joomla that wasn't available for Drupal. So the presentation was about this project I set for myself of using ChatGPT to port all of that code for me. And I try to think about it not at all. So it was really like really exercising the limits of what you can do with AI. And the conclusion that I came to was that it's for productivity. It's not something that can really replace thought. It can't replace people. It's just a kind of an extra layer of automation almost. I think somebody at the presentation actually said it's like really smart autocomplete. If you're a developer and you've ever used autocomplete, it's great explanation of what it is. Um, it can write a lot of boring boilerplate for you, and that's great. And that works in code, and I bet it works for other business units as well, right? Like marketing and so on. So you like your documents that you've got to write, proposals, that sort of thing. Like we touched on a minute ago, it's great at explaining things. So if you actually, John, wanted to understand that code that ChatGPT had given you, it could tell you how it all works and everything. And I've also found that maybe this is just me as a programmer. I would, in the past, be asking Google a lot of very specific questions, right? And I needed very specific answers. But it would just try to like dumb down my questions. I was finding this more and more. So now with those questions, when I've got a specific problem with a specific code library or whatever, I can just go straight to ChatGPT and it'll usually be able to give me the answer and some sample code. And not only examples that I want, it'll give me examples that are tailored to the context that I'm working in, to what I'm trying to achieve. So it's great for that.
I've noticed that too. That's one thing that I've been doing a lot more recently is not using Google as much and using just asking the questions, because then when you have a specific question for Google, you end up on some forum and some random person is describing something somewhat similar to what you were doing. And then maybe it works, maybe it's what you're talking about, maybe not. But yeah, ChatGPT, you can ask it anything and it'll at least, and now you can get it to, like, if you need it to cite a specific source, it will actually look on the internet for you and find the source for what you're looking for and be like, this is where I found this answer for you. And so that's pretty cool. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, that was a great update. The last update they had. Was that last week that
Yeah,
happened?
recently, yeah.
You know, when it landed just before my presentation. So a whole bunch of stuff changed. And then things were broken. That was great fun. But for the downsides, I suppose we got to talk about the downsides, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So it feels like it's kind of dumb, stupid a lot of the time, right? It has no reasoning abilities. And yeah, we could get into how it works, but I better not. But there's a reason, there's a very good reason why it can't think. It seems like it's thinking. It's like you're having a conversation with a human, but it's just guessing which word should come next. It really is. And since it's guessing, it's also prone to what we call hallucinations, which is it'll imagine things that don't even exist. Sometimes for me, I'll give it a problem like, hey, can you give me some code for this? You know, to solve problem Z. And it'll be like, oh, okay, just import the problem Z library. And I'm going, I don't think that exists. Is that the, and I look it up. I'm like questioning myself, my own sanity almost. I go and look it up. No, that doesn't exist. You made it up, ChatGPT. It's a hallucination. The other downside is where it feels like we are right now is like 1950s mainframes without the cool aesthetics. They're very limited, right? When we talk about AI as well, we're normally talking about like large language models like ChatGPT. And yeah, they're really limited in how much context you can have, how much they can remember. So, you know, in a long conversation, ChatGPT is going to forget things that you've told it. And that's a big problem. But, you know, 50s mainframes, they got better after a while, right?
Hmm. So when you talk about, I like that. I think that's a good segue into my next question here is you're talking about it as this 50s mainframe. So where do you see it going in the future? What do you predict the next iteration to be? Or like, where do you see AI going next in terms of what you use it for?
In terms of what I use it for. Yeah, okay. So like the 1950s mainframes, they got smaller physically and way more capable, right? So right now, if you're talking to ChatGPT, you're talking to quite a physically big piece of infrastructure, right? There's probably a huge building with a whole bunch of graphics cards in it, chugging away, all to write your basic HTML or whatever you've asked it. So where I would predict it going is like you go from the 1950s through to the 80s, you've got home computers then, right? In that time, they shrank, they became more capable, and eventually you could run them at home. And that's where I really hope we're going. And I'm really hoping that the models themselves will be open. So right now you have to go through the company OpenAI.
Right.
Well, there's models by Facebook which are getting as good as ChatGPT. And my hope is that'll continue and those models will get better. And eventually people will be able to download a model onto their home computer or onto their business machine even and train it the way they want, add their own training on top of what Facebook's done for their own business needs, and then, use it for whatever they want in their business. That's where I
That
really hope it's going.
that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's cool. And I imagine with the exponential nature of technology, that won't take 30 years for that to happen.
Yeah, I hope so. Seems
Um,
to be moving faster than that. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. My last question for you, would be, do you have any other advice for fellow developers who are starting to use these tools or starting to use
Mm.
ChatGPT for what they do?
Yeah. So if you're not using any AI, any large language model right now, the easiest, quickest way you can get going is open Visual Studio Code or get it. You go into the extensions on there and install the GitHub Copilot extension. And there's like a 30-day free trial. After that, it's like $10 a month. So it's a great way to get started. And just use it. If you're just using Visual Studio Code to edit your code, um, it will just pop up suggestions. AI provided suggestions will just appear and you just press tab and they're in your code. Done. It's very fast and stupid as well. It is stupider than GPT-4, I feel like, but it's a great way with no effort to just get started.
That's awesome. That's perfect. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. I feel like I learned a lot, so I hope that this adds value for the people watching as well.
Great. Yeah, it's great to have been on. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. All right. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next week.